Most people walk past these plants every single day and have no idea what they're looking at. Not weeds, not decoration, not just history. These are some of the most studied, most potent, most overlooked plants in human history, and they've been growing in gardens, fields, and wild landscapes for thousands of years. What makes them different? They weren't chosen randomly. They were observed, tested, and relied upon by ancient civilizations across the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and North Africa. Cultures that didn't have access to pharmacies or supplements. Cultures that had to get it right, because survival depended on it. And here's what most people miss. Modern science is now confirming what those ancient societies already knew. The compounds in these plants, the ways they were prepared, the conditions they were used for, it wasn't superstition, it was pattern recognition, sharpened over generations. Today we're breaking down 15 of these plants, and by the time we get to number 7, you'll understand why one of them is being studied for blood sugar regulation. By number 3, you'll see why another has become a focal point in cardiovascular research, and number 1, it's been hiding in kitchens and medicine cabinets for centuries, but almost no one knows the full scope of what it can actually do. This isn't about mysticism. This is about biochemistry, traditional observation, and forgotten practical knowledge that still works. Let's start with the ones that'll surprise you most. Hyssop, the respiratory cleanser that still holds up. Most people have never heard of hyssop. And it's the ones do we have think. It's just an ornamental herb. It's not. Hyssop was used across ancient Mediterranean cultures as one of the primary tools for respiratory support. It wasn't decorative, it wasn't symbolic, it was functional. When someone had congestion, labored breathing, or chest tightness, hyssop was one of the first plants they reached for. What makes it work? Hyssop contains potent volatile oils, including compounds like pinocamphone, isopinocamphone, and beta-pinene. These compounds have demonstrated expectorant and antispasmodic properties in multiple studies. Research suggests they help loosen mucus, support the relaxation of bronchial passages, and may reduce inflammation in the respiratory tract. Traditional preparation was simple but deliberate. The leaves and flowers were steeped into teas or used in steam inhalations. The goal was to introduce those volatile compounds directly into the respiratory system, where they could go to work immediately. And here's what's interesting. Modern herbalists still use hyssop for the exact same purpose. Respiratory infections, chronic cough, bronchial inflammation. This plant keeps showing up because the mechanism still makes sense. It's not outdated, it's just been overlooked. You won't find hyssop in most grocery stores, but if you grow it or source it dried, the traditional method still works. Steep a teaspoon of dried hyssop in hot water for 10 minutes. Strain. Drink warm. Ancient cultures didn't have inhalers, but they had this. Rue, the bitter plant, with a powerful reputation, rue is one of those plants that makes people uncomfortable. It's bitter. It's strong, and historically it was treated with serious respect. This was never a casual kitchen herb. Rue was used in small, controlled amounts by traditional healers for very specific conditions: digestive cramping, menstrual regulation, and what old medical texts described as nervous tension. The compounds in rue, particularly the alkaloids and flavonoids like rutin, have been studied for their effects on smooth muscle tissue and capillary strength. Rutin, one of the primary active compounds, has demonstrated potential in supporting vascular health and reducing capillary fragility. Some research suggests it may help with circulation and venous conditions. The plant also contains methyl ketones that were traditionally believed to ease muscle spasms. But here's the critical part. Rue is not for casual experimentation. It's potent. Overuse can cause photosensitivity and other adverse effects. Traditional use was always minimal, measured, and supervised. Ancient herbalists understood dosage in a way modern consumers often don't. They didn't treat every plant like a smoothie ingredient. They knew which plants demanded caution. Rue is one of them, powerful when respected, dangerous when misused. If you encounter it in historical herbalism texts or traditional formulas, now you know why it was there and why it was used so carefully. Myrtle, the aromatic antiseptic that predates modern medicine, myrtle doesn't look like much. Small leaves, white flowers, dark berries, easy to overlook. But ancient Mediterranean and Middle Eastern cultures used myrtle as one of their primary antiseptic and respiratory support plants. The leaves were crushed, infused, and applied to wounds. The berries were eaten for digestive support. The essential oil was used in early forms of what we'd now call aromatherapy. The active compounds in myrtle include myrtenol and 1,8-cinyl, substances now recognized for their antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties. Studies have shown that myrtle extracts can inhibit the growth of certain bacteria and fungi, which explains why it was used topically for infections and skin conditions. Traditional use extended to respiratory issues as well. Myrtle was often prepared as a steam inhalation or chest rub to ease congestion and support lung function. The mechanism? Those same volatile oils that fight bacteria also help open airways and reduce inflammation in the respiratory tract. What makes myrtle remarkable is how versatile it was. One plant, multiple applications: wound care, respiratory support, digestive aid, even oral health. Ancient people didn't waste space in their gardens on plants that only did one thing. Myrtle earned its place because it delivered. Today, you can still find myrtle essential oil in some natural health stores. The traditional uses haven't changed. The sense is just catching up to what those ancient cultures already observed, and that pattern is about to repeat itself over and over in this list. Coriander, the seed that supports more than flavor. Most people know coriander as cilantro. Same plant, different part. The leaves are cilantro, the seeds are coriander. And while the leaves get all the attention in modern cooking, the seeds were the real powerhouse in traditional medicine. Coriander seeds were used across ancient civilizations for digestive support, blood sugar management, and as a mild diuretic. They weren't just flavoring. They were functional food medicine. The seeds contain compounds like linalool, which has demonstrated anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects in research. But what's even more interesting is the emerging evidence around blood sugar regulation. Several studies have indicated that coriander seed extract may help support healthy insulin function and glucose metabolism. Traditional preparation was straightforward. The seeds were lightly crushed or ground and added to meals, or they were steeped into teas. The goal was daily, consistent use, not as a treatment, but as ongoing support for metabolic and digestive health. Ancient people didn't have continuous glucose monitors, but they observed patterns. They noticed Duccio stayed healthy, Duccio maintained energy, and they paid attention to what those people ate. Coriander seeds were part of that pattern. You can still use them the same way. Toast them lightly in a dry pan to release the oils, then grind them into soup, stews, or teas. The flavor is warm, slightly citrusy, earthy, and the benefits still there, still relevant. Still underestimated. Mustard, the seed that generates heat and healing. Mustard is one of those plants people think they understand. Condiment, sandwich spread, maybe a cooking ingredient. But traditional cultures used mustard seeds as a medicinal tool long before anyone thought to put them in a jar. Mustard seeds contain compounds called glucosinolates, which break down into isothiocyanates when crushed or chewed. These substances create that characteristic heat and pungency, but they also have significant biological activity. Research suggests they may support detoxification pathways, reduce inflammation, and even have antimicrobial properties. Historically, mustard was used externally as a poultice for joint pain, chest congestion, and muscle soreness. The mechanism is actually fascinating. When mustard seeds are ground and mixed with water, they create a warming sensation that increases local blood flow. This was ancient thermotherapy. Internally, mustard seeds were used to stimulate digestion and support circulation. They were often combined with other warming spices in traditional formulas designed to move energy through the body, what modern science would describe as improving circulation and metabolic activity. The most interesting part? Emerging research on cruciferous plants, which includes mustard, suggests potential anti-cancer properties linked to those same glucosinolates. The compounds that create the heat may also support cellular health and DNA release mechanisms. Ancient people didn't know about DNA, but they knew mustard worked. They saw it reduce pain. They felt it clear congestion. They observed its effects over generations, and they kept using it. If you've only ever experienced mustard as a condiment, you're missing the full picture. Try crushing fresh mustard seeds and adding them to warm dishes, or make a traditional mustard foot bath for circulation support. The plant has more to offer than flavor. Flax, the fiber that built civilizations and bodies. Flax is ancient, like truly ancient, one of the first domesticated crops in human history, and it wasn't grown for decoration. Flax gave us linen, one of the most durable naturals ever discovered, but it also gave us flax seeds, small, unassuming, and nutritionally dense in ways that most modern foods aren't. Flax seeds are loaded with alpha-linolenic acid, a plant-based omega-3 fatty acid. They're also one of the richest sources of lignans, compounds that have demonstrated estrogenic and antioxidant activity in research. And they're packed with soluble fiber, which supports gut health, cholesterol management, and blood sugar stability. Traditional use was simple. The seeds were ground and added to breads, porridges, and drinks. grinding was essential. Whole flax seeds pass through the digestive system largely intact. Ancient people figured this out through observation. If you didn't grind them, you didn't get the benefits. What makes flax especially relevant today is the omega-3 content. Most modern diets are heavily skewed toward omega-6 fatty acids, which can promote inflammation when out of balance. Omega-3s help restore that balance, supporting cardiovascular health, brain function, and inflammatory regulation. Studies have shown that regular flax consumption help reduce LDL cholesterol, support healthy blood pressure, and improve markers of inflammation. Traditional cultures didn't have those studies, but they had millennia of observation showing that people WHO consumed flax regularly age better and stayed healthier. You can still use flax the traditional way. Grind the seeds fresh. Pre-ground flax loses potency quickly due to oxidation, and add them to oatmeal, smoothies, or baked goods. A tablespoon or 2 daily is enough. Ancient people built entire textile industries around this plant, but they never forgot what it could do inside the body too. Cumin, the seed that regulates from the inside out. Cumin is one of those spices that shows up in almost every traditional cuisine: Middle Eastern, Indian, Mediterranean, Latin American. It's everywhere. And there's a reason. Cumin seeds were used historically not just for flavor, but for digestive regulation, metabolic support, and even immune function. Traditional medical systems treated cumin as a foundational remedy for bloating, gas, and sluggish digestion. The active compound responsible for much of cumin's effect is cuminaldehyde, which has demonstrated antimicrobial and digestive stimulating properties. Research also suggests that cumin may support healthy blood sugar levels and improve insulin sensitivity, making it relevant for metabolic health. One of the most interesting studies on cumin showed that regular consumption was associated with reductions in body weight, cholesterol, and triglycerides in overweight individuals. The mechanism likely involves its improved fat metabolism and enhanced thermogenesis, the body's ability to generate heat and burn energy. Traditional preparation was always heat-activated. Cumin seeds were toasted in a dry pan until fragrant, then ground or used whole in cooking. The heat releases the essential oils and makes the active compounds more bioavailable. Ancient cooks didn't just throw cumin into dishes randomly. They understood that certain spices supported digestion, especially when eating heavier or richer foods. Cumin was one of the core digestive aids, often combined with coriander and fennel in traditional spice blends. If you want to use cumin the way it was intended, toast the seeds first. The difference in potency and flavor is immediate. Add them to lentils, roasted vegetables, rice dishes, or even teas. Your digestion will notice, just like it did thousands of years ago. Pomegranate, the fruit that protects what matters. Most pomegranate isn't subtle. The deep red color, the jewel-like seeds, the rich, tart flavor, it announces itself. And ancient cultures treated it with the reverence it deserved. Pomegranate was used traditionally for cardiovascular support, digestive health, and as a symbol of vitality and longevity. But this wasn't just symbolism. The biochemistry backs it up. Pomegranates are extraordinarily high in polyphenols, particularly punicalagins and ellagic acid. These compounds have demonstrated potent antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects in research. Some studies suggest pomegranate extract may support healthy blood pressure, improve cholesterol profiles, and protect against oxidative damage to the cardiovascular system. One of the most compelling areas of research involves pomegranate's potential effects on arterial health. Studies have shown that pomegranate juice may help reduce arterial plaque buildup and improve blood flow. The mechanism involves reducing oxidative stress and inflammation in the vascular system, two of the primary drivers of cardiovascular disease. Traditional use involved eating the seeds, drinking the juice, or even using the rind in medicinal preparations. The entire fruit was considered valuable. Nothing was wasted. What makes pomegranate especially relevant now is the modern epidemic of metabolic and cardiovascular dysfunction. Heart disease remains the leading cause of death globally. And here's a fruit that ancient people used specifically for heart and circulation support, now being validated by modern research. If you're going to add one fruit to your routine based on historical use and modern evidence, pomegranate is a strong contender. Fresh is best, but pure pomegranate juice, no added sugar, is a practical alternative. Ancient people didn't have statins, but they had this. And it kept them alive long enough to pass the knowledge down. Figs, the fruit that nourished empires. Figs are one of the oldest cultivated fruits in human history. Ancient civilizations across the Mediterranean and Middle East relied on them not just as food, but as concentrated nutrition and medicine. Fresh figs are rich in natural sugars, fiber, and minerals like potassium, magnesium, and calcium. Dried figs become even more nutrient-dense, serving as portable energy and digestive support for travelers, soldiers, and laborers. But here's what's interesting from a health perspective. Figs are loaded with both soluble and insoluble fiber. The soluble fiber supports gut health and helps regulate blood sugar by slowing glucose absorption. The insoluble fiber promotes digestive motility and regular elimination, critical in a world without modern plumbing or processed foods. Figs also contain compounds called polyphenols and benzaldehyde, which have demonstrated antioxidant and potential anti-cancer properties in preliminary research. Traditional use often involved fig poultices applied to skin conditions, abscesses, and even tumors. One of the most underappreciated aspects of figs is their mineral content. Ancient diets, especially in arid regions, were often low in certain minerals. Figs provided calcium, potassium, and magnesium in bioavailable forms, nutrients essential for bone health, muscle function, and cardiovascular regulation. Traditional preparation was simple. Eat them fresh when available, dry them for storage, or soak dried figs overnight to rehydrate them. Some cultures made fig pastes or syrups for medicinal use, particularly for respiratory and digestive support. Modern research on figs has explored their effects on blood sugar, cholesterol, and digestive health, with several studies showing promising results. The fiber and polyphenol content make them particularly relevant for metabolic support. If you've only ever figs in a cookie, you're missing the point. Try fresh or dried organic figs. Soak them. Add them to salads or oatmeal. Eat them as they were intended, as real food, not filler. Empires were built on grains and legumes, but figs fueled the people W built them. Frankincense, the resin that modern science can't ignore. Frankincense was one of the most valuable substances in the ancient world. Not gold, not silver. Resin from a tree. And there's a reason it was worth that much. Frankincense resin contains boswellic acids, compounds that have demonstrated significant anti-inflammatory activity in modern research. These acids work by inhibiting specific enzymes involved in the inflammatory cascade, particularly 5-lipoxygenase, which plays a role in conditions like arthritis, asthma, and inflammatory bowel disease. Traditional use involved burning the resin as incense, but it was also chewed, dissolved in water, or used topically. Ancient medical systems used frankincense for joint pain, respiratory conditions, digestive inflammation, and even wound healing. What makes frankincense especially interesting is how well it's held up under scientific scrutiny. Multiple studies have explored its effects on osteoarthritis, with some showing reductions in pain and improved joint function comparable to standard treatments. Other research has looked at its potential role in managing inflammatory bowel conditions like Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. The respiratory benefits also make sense biochemically. The volatile compounds released when frankincense is burned or heated have antimicrobial and bronchodilatory properties. Inhaling those compounds was ancient aromatherapy, but with measurable biological effects. Today, frankincense is available as an essential oil, resin, or standardized extract. The traditional method of chewing small pieces of resin is still practiced in some cultures, particularly in the Middle East and North Africa. Ancient people traded frankincense across continents. They didn't do that for symbolism. They did it because the resin worked for pain, for breathing, for inflammation, for healing. Modern science is just confirming what they already knew. Sear, the bitter resin that heals. What it touches, myrrh and frankincense are often mentioned together, but they're not the same. Myrrh is darker, more bitter, and historically was used for different purposes. Myrrh resin was primarily valued for its antimicrobial, astringent, and wound-healing properties. It was applied topically to cuts, infections, and ulcers. It was used as a mouthwash for oral health and gum disease. It was even taken internally for digestive and respiratory infections. The active compounds in myrrh include terpenoids and sesquiterpenes, which have demonstrated antimicrobial activity against bacteria, fungi, and even some parasites. Research has shown that myrrh extracts can inhibit the growth of pathogens like Staphylococcus aureus and Candida albicans. One of the most validated traditional uses is for oral health. Myrrh has been studied for its effects on gingivitis and mouth ulcers, with results showing significant reductions in inflammation and bacterial load. Ancient people didn't have toothpaste, but they had myrrh, and their approach worked. Traditional preparation involved dissolving the resin in water or alcohol to create tinctures, mouthwashes, or topical applications. The resin could also be powdered and applied directly to wounds or mixed into salves. What's remarkable is how specific ancient use was. Myrrh wasn't used for everything. It was used for infections, wounds, and conditions requiring antimicrobial action. That specificity suggests real observation and pattern recognition, not guesswork. Modern herbalists still use myrrh for the same conditions. The mechanisms haven't changed, the pathogens haven't changed, and the resin still works. If you've ever wondered why ancient trade routes fought over tree SAP, now you know. It wasn't luxury. It was survival. Aloe vera, the plant that soothes everything it meets. Aloe vera is one of the few ancient remedies that never left. It transitioned seamlessly from traditional medicine into modern skincare, wound care, and even internal health support. The gel inside aloe leaves contains over 75 active compounds, including vitamins, minerals, enzymes, amino acids, and polysaccharides. The most studied components are osmannan and other complex sugars that have demonstrated immune-modulating and wound-healing properties. Traditional use was both topical and internal. For burns, cuts, and skin irritation, fresh aloe gel was applied directly. For digestive issues, constipation, or internal inflammation, the gel was consumed in small amounts. Modern research has validated many of these uses. Aloe has been shown to accelerate wound healing, reduce inflammation, and support skin regeneration. Some studies suggest it may also help with blood sugar regulation and digestive health, though more research is needed in those areas. One of the most interesting aspects of aloe is its effect on the skin barrier. The polysaccharides in aloe gel help retain moisture and support the skin's natural repair processes. This is why it's so effective for burns. It doesn't just cool the skin, it actually supports healing at the cellular level. Traditional preparation was simple. Cut a leaf, extract the clear gel, avoid the yellow latex layer near the rind, which can be a strong laxative, and use fresh. Ancient people kept aloe plants in their homes for the same reason modern people keep first aid kits. If you grow aloe, you have access to one of the most versatile healing plants in history. Fresh gel beats any commercial product. Use it on burns, cuts, dry skin, or even minor internal inflammation. Ancient people didn't need studies to know it worked. They just used it. And it kept working. Mint, the leaf that calms what modern life agitates. Mint seems to be powerful. It's in gum, toothpaste, tea, candy, everywhere. But that ubiquity is actually a testament to how effective it is. Mint, particularly peppermint and spearmint, has been used for thousands of years as a digestive aid, headache remedy, and respiratory support. The primary active compound is menthol, which has demonstrated antispasmodic, analgesic, and cooling properties. Research on peppermint oil has shown significant benefits for irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, particularly in reducing abdominal pain, bloating, and cramping. The mechanism involves relaxing smooth muscle tissue in the digestive tract, which reduces spasms and discomfort. Traditional use was incredibly simple. Fresh or dried mint leaves were steeped into tea and consumed after meals or during digestive upset. Mint oil was applied topically to temples for headaches or to the chest for respiratory congestion. What makes mint especially relevant now is the modern epidemic of digestive dysfunction. Stress, processed foods, irregular eating patterns, all of these disrupt gut motility and create chronic digestive discomfort. Mint addresses the symptom, spasms and pain, while also supporting the underlying issue, smooth muscle tension. Mint also has mild antimicrobial properties, which is why it was traditionally used for oral health and to preserve food. The menthol creates an inhospitable environment for certain bacteria, which explains its effectiveness in mouthwashes and topical applications. If you've been drinking mint tea casually, you've been getting the benefits without realizing it. But if you want the full effect, use fresh mint or high-quality dried leaves. Steep for at least 5 minutes to extract the oils. Drink warm after meals.
Ancient people didn't have antacids.
But they had mint, and it worked then. It still works now. Olive, the tree that defines longevity, the olive tree, is a symbol of endurance. Some olive trees alive today are over 1,000 years old. And the fruit, the oil, and even the leaves have been central to human health for millennia. Olive is one of the most studied foods in nutrition science, primarily because of the Mediterranean diet and its association with longevity, cardiovascular health, and reduced chronic disease. The key compounds are monounsaturated fats, particularly oleic acid, and polyphenols like oleuropein and hydroxytyrosol. These polyphenols have demonstrated powerful anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects. Research suggests they may protect against oxidative damage, support healthy cholesterol levels, improve blood vessel function, and even have neuroprotective properties. Traditional use wasn't limited to the oil. Olive leaves were brewed into teas for immune support and blood pressure regulation. The fruit itself was eaten whole, often cured or brinned. Every part of the tree was used. What's especially interesting is the research on olive leaf extract. Studies have shown it may help support healthy blood pressure, blood sugar regulation, and immune function. The compound oleuropein appears to have antimicrobial and antiviral properties, which explains why traditional cultures used olive leaves during illness. The oil, when cold-pressed and unrefined, retains the highest concentration of polyphenols. This is why extra virgin olive oil is superior, not just in flavor, but in bioactive content. Ancient people didn't have chemical analysis, but they knew fresh pressed oil was different. They could taste it. Modern populations that consume olive oil daily, particularly in Mediterranean regions, consistently show lower rates of heart disease, cognitive decline, and inflammatory conditions. This isn't genetic, it's dietary. If you're going to invest in one traditional food, make it high-quality olive oil. Use it generously. Don't cook it at high heat. Reserve it for drizzling, dipping, and low-temperature cooking. Ancient civilizations built economies around this tree. And the people consumed its fruit lived long enough to see those civilizations rise and fall. Garlic, the bulb that built immunity before medicine existed. Garlic is the most researched, most validated, most underestimated plant on this list. It's also the one most people think they already understand. Flavor, maybe some vague idea about heart health, but the full picture is bigger than most realize. Garlic contains over 100 sulfur-containing compounds, with allicin being the most studied. Allicin is created when garlic is crushed or chopped, triggering an enzymatic reaction that releases this powerful compound. Allicin has demonstrated antimicrobial, antifungal, antiviral, and antiparasitic properties in countless studies, but garlic's benefits go far beyond fighting infections. Research has shown that regular garlic consumption may support cardiovascular health by improving cholesterol profiles, reducing blood pressure, and preventing arterial plaque formation. Some studies suggest it may also support blood sugar regulation and reduce the risk of certain cancers, particularly gastric and colorectal. Traditional use was aggressive and intentional. Garlic wasn't a garnish, it was medicine. Ancient Egyptian laborers were given garlic rations to maintain strength and prevent illness. Ancient Greek athletes consumed garlic before competitions. Traditional healers used garlic poultices for infections, garlic teas for respiratory illness, and raw garlic for digestive parasites. One of the most validated uses is for immune support. Garlic has been shown to enhance the activity of white cell cells, reduce the severity and duration of colds, and support overall immune resilience. The mechanism involves both direct antimicrobial action and immune system modulation. The key to unlocking garlic's full potential is preparation. Crushing or chopping garlic and letting it sit for 10 minutes before cooking allows the allicin to form. Cooking immediately after cutting destroys much of the enzyme responsible for creating allicin. Ancient people didn't know the chemistry, but they figured out the method through trial and observation. Raw garlic is the most potent form, but it's also the harshest. Traditional use often involved combining raw garlic with honey, olive oil, or lemon to make it more palatable. Aged garlic extracts, which have undergone fermentation, offer a milder option while retaining many of the beneficial compounds. What makes garlic the #1 plant on this list isn't just the breadth of research, it's the accessibility. Garlic grows almost anywhere. It's cheap, it stores well, and it works. Ancient civilizations didn't have antibiotics, they didn't have antivirals, they didn't have blood pressure medications or cholesterol drugs, but they had garlic. And it kept them alive long enough to build pyramids, write philosophies, and pass down the knowledge that we're only now beginning to fully appreciate. If there's one plant you take seriously from this list, make it this one. These 15 plants weren't chosen at random. They weren't kept in gardens for decoration or passed down through generations because of tradition alone. They were observed, tested, relied upon, and they worked. What ancient people understood, and what modern culture often forgets, is that nature doesn't need to be improved. It needs to be understood. The compounds in these plants, the mechanisms they activate, the systems they support, all of it was already there. Waiting, growing, available. The difference between then and now isn't knowledge. It's attention. Ancient people paid attention because they had to. There was no backup plan. No pharmacy. No overnight shipping. If a plant didn't work, people suffered. If it did work, it got remembered. And these 15? They got remembered for thousands of years. Modern science is catching up. The studies are being published. The mechanisms are being mapped. But the plants themselves haven't changed. They're the same now as they were then. The question is, are you paying attention? Asterisk, here's what I want you to do. Pick one plant from this list, just one. Grow it, source it, or start using it intentionally. See what happens when you bring even a small piece of that ancient observation back into your life. Then come back and tell me which one you chose and what you noticed. I read every comment, and I want to know which of these resonated with you most. If this video changed the way you see your garden, your kitchen, or even just the herbs sitting in your pantry, hit that subscribe button, because we're just getting started. Next time, we're diving into the forgotten grains that modern agriculture abandoned, and why some of the healthiest trusted populations on Earth are bringing them back. You won't want to miss it.